Hello and welcome to Rock Paper Shotgun. This is Matthew speaking, and today we are looking at Age of Wonders Planetfall, the new game from Triumph Studios. If you're familiar with Age of Wonders, you'll know that they are traditionally fantasy games. This shifts into an exciting new sci-fi setting, and we got to play a battle of it at E3 a few weeks ago. So let's kick this off. So the setup for Planetfall is that the Galactic Empire has collapsed and left all these rival factions competing for the spoils. We are playing as the Assembly, which is a cyborg race, which includes this rather funky looking lady here. This is our leader of the Assembly. I'm going to pause here just to very quickly look at the world map. This is quite a late game stage and she's built a big empire. Now, one of the big differences compared to Age of Wonders is that they're really trying to increase the kind of focus on economy and diplomacy. And the way they've done this is that each planet is a series of sectors which you're kind of taking over. Different sectors then connect back to your main colony. The idea is that you can trade these individual sectors or fight for them. You can go and sort of claim them with a forward base, for example. And the idea is that you've got these smaller areas which become bargaining chips rather than trading in cities, which are just so much more larger. The investment makes it quite a stressful process. At the start of the game, you pick from one of 6 factions. Like I said, we've got the Assembly, and you also pick a secret technology. These aren't associated with any specific faction, but they're more about your kind of big tech goal for the future. So in this case, we are working on something called Xenoplague. All the tech trees in the green area are related to this. You can also look above, there's some social and military policies that we're working on. But the Xenoplague is an alien parasite that infects the population. Both colonists and military types, and it creates a new type of unit. If, like us, you are wondering, what is the Plague Lord? This can infect other units on the battlefield, can resurrect other Xenoplague units. It looks a little bit like the tripod from War of the Worlds, but with a few more kind of tentacle bits going on. You'll get to see one in a second. So all the way over here we have the Omega Awakening. This is basically the tech victory for the game. Of the 6 secret technologies, each has a tech victory. This one pumps the atmosphere with spores that spread the Xenoplague in 10 turns. If you can survive those 10 turns, you win the game. This means protecting these sort of doomsday towers that complete the operation. If you lose one of them in those turns, the timer will reset. Obviously, the enemies across that we've done this. We're now going to go into some direct conflict, in this time with the Vanguard. The Vanguard were kind of the army of the former empire, obviously. That empire is now gone, so they are left without a leader and they're kind of trying to take matters into their own hands. It's led by this chap, Michael Valentine, who the developers think has a sort of 70s Battlestar Galactica vibe. He's definitely got that Captain Apollo hair. I think he looks a bit more like Toast of London, the very handsome Matt Berry. War is declared. Of course, we're told the best defence is offence, so we're going to try and take over one of his energy reactors. We're just going to look over our units here. This is the Wrecker. He's got a big pustule on his back. That's a sign of the Xenoplague. And here we have our old pal, the Plague Lord. The symbols down the side actually show that they've been modded. I'm going to pause it here very quickly to explain that. The mod system is actually very deep. You can power even your most basic troops into super soldiers. You can also mix components from factions by getting rival factions into your empire, so you can really adapt your army for specific threats. This mod here gives him a hyper-evolved immune system and a ferocious determination, which is a status effect I get when I find out Toblerone are on special offer at Sainsbury's. He's also got ocular implants, which give him improved range and critical chance hit, and biospore purification, which is an ability that lets it heal and remove status effects. He's a very handy Plague Lord. So every tech victory that you're working towards has this 10-turn cooldown, but the effects they bring to the world are different. So the Omega Awakening regenerates our units and debuffs others, and others can burn the world or do weird stuff with space-time. Hopefully we can take a look at those in a future video. These are our enemies. We've got the Lieutenant of Valentine called Ace Balin. He's a Promethean unit, so he's all about burning the world to build a new civilization from the ashes. Nice man. We've got engineers, they can fix mechanical units and place turrets on the battlefield. Then we've got these Iron Man purifiers, nothing to do with Marvel's Iron Man. What are they purifying? Well, it's monsters like us, of course. A biomechanical abomination, just can't catch a break. Of course, when we choose to attack them, a local militia joins in. It actually joins their army, which makes it 6 of us, 7 of them. Let's see how it goes on. So this is our battlefield. We're actually going to start with the defenders. The little flying guy you'll see hovering above the battlefield. He's a scout unit. He can shoot from above, and he can also target paint the enemies to help their attacks. The swine. Just to explain the movement, you can move within the hex area. The different colours denote how many action points it will cost to get there. You can move in the turquoise area and have all 3 action points, which means you could basically shoot 3 times. And each colour tier drops an action point, so as you go to blue you'll lose 1, all the way to sprinting to red, which means you have no action points to then do any moves. It's kind of XCOM-y in that way, but it is different in the way these action points are broken down in those tiers is different. Triumph also very keen to emphasise that the number of units on the battlefield is very different to XCOM, gives it a very different vibe. Of course, we've got the half cover, full colour cover, which is very familiar. When we select this Overwatch option, you can see this very faint dotted white line, which shows the range of your attack. Let's get a little zoom up on our friend the Plague Lord. Those tentacles are not just for show. They can smack enemies and stagger them, and they can infect them with parasites. That's 2 for 1. For now, we're going to tinker around with our hero units. She can actually die in battle without losing the whole game. As long as you have a capital, she can resurrect there. Put men in cover. You've got to be careful. Cover is destructible, as we'll see a bit later. So when we're using Overwatch here, you have to place the direction that you want to use. I mean, there's only one obvious choice here. This is the Wrecker. We have several choices with this guy. He's super strong, so we could march him into the red and absorb some of the Overwatch fire of those front units. What we actually choose to do is to plop him down between some of our other units. Now time for the Plague Lord. He's got all kinds of horrible things he can do. He's got serrated spikes. He can bring back dead Xenoplague units with his reanimation spores. I quite like the symbol for that because it's a little spooky tentacle coming out of a grave. For now though, we're going to use his hyper aggression buff, power up all these guys, and finish the turn. Actually, we're going to call in operations. You can call these in from the sky. For example, you can bring down a drop spore pod, which does damage and leaves a bloated pustule on the battlefield. You get to see one of those a bit later, which is very good news for all you bloated pustule fans, and I know we've got some. Or you can use signal shredding to disrupt mechanical or cyborg enemies, stunning them. We could also drop a low-tier cluster bomb, which is a shredder bomb. Shredder! Great against organic material, but quite weak against these heavily armoured Vanguards, so we don't opt for that. Instead, we go for the arc discharge, which is high impact and can spread to nearby units. It also has a static charge, which leaves them more susceptible to future arc damage. So now let's see what Valentine's swine are going to do in return. They're sending forward their little hero unit, and he destroys some of the cover, which kind of makes us regret grouping everyone together. It's like shooting cyborg fish in a barrel, but of course if they were cyborg fish they could adapt themselves to be less barrel reliant. The scout unit targets our leader, and the engineers drop a turret. These chaps down here can stagger my sniper rifle with grenades. Normally I need 3 action points to do sniping, so that's actually quite a smart move.
Operations ready.
So our leader has an ability that if she kills a person, she regains an action point. So shooting the droid out of the sky basically gives her another move.
Enemy down.
She can also reassemble other cyborgs once they've been collapsed into their various organic parts, but we actually opt for an Inferno launcher, which can stagger and has incendiary properties. We were mainly doing things because they sounded cool, I'll admit. There's not a huge amount of strategic thought in a lot of what we're doing. But come on, who doesn't want to see the Infernal launcher? You'll notice the little colour symbols around enemies' heads. Those denote the chance to hit from green to red, and you can work out which is good. And when you're moving to a new location, that location will tell you what your chance to hit is from that tile to help inform the decision. Here we're using a snapshot, which is a slightly vaguer sniper shot. It's got lower chance to hit, but does take down the unit. Spoiler alert. Here we were toying with sending in our melee wrecker, but we didn't want him getting in the way of later attacks, so we chose to move some gunmen about first, ideally outside of the bonfire where they are currently standing. Out of the fire, back into the frying pan? Is that what this is? I'm not entirely sure. Of course, good opportunity to move the Plague Lord to keep him resurrecting others, use those serrated spike on the enemies. I think these guys here are really going to regret running here because they've basically become guinea pigs for us to test all our moves on them, as we can just want to see what all the various effects are. Should have stayed at the back with all the other cowards. We actually send the wrecker to see the enemy leader. We didn't have enough action points for an attack, so we just used his hyper armor. And we decide to drop a spore pod. This is that pustule thing I mentioned earlier. It can actually act as a good diversion, because obviously it creates another unit on the battlefield. What's quite tasty about this is it does that big damage when it lands, but then you also have the pustule which can self-detonate, which does further damage, so you get that secondary attack. Yes, these poor chaps up here who really, really regret coming to this tiny little turret. Splat! Of course, they have their own operations. They drop a nanite repair station in the middle of their ranks, which begins healing everyone. Plague Lord style. And their leader does this horrible phoenix breath thing and basically barbecues half my army. And then we get a bit of the old Gatling gun to the face. Goodbye, units. Sorry that I didn't understand the rules of the game properly. Luckily, this wrecker can just absorb mega hits, so... We're going to send in our little pustule friend to do some damage. He's actually got quite cute little legs. Look at them go. He's like a Pokemon that didn't make the cut. A little bit underpowered as it does biological damage and it's up against these big armoured guys, but, you know, every little helps. That blinding snapshot definitely coming in use. This spot on the battlefield has proven very unlucky for everyone who's picked it. Personally, I'd look at the pile of bones of my fallen comrades and think, maybe not. Again with the leader, if we can kill someone, we're going to get an action point refresh, which would come in handy. So we'll try and pick on these weaklings here.
Enemy terminated.
Goodbye. Unfortunately, we prove less effective against the people who are left there. You can only do that refresh thing once a turn, by the way. Here we're going to attack the hero, of course, because we're the wrecker, we're behind them, we flank them, we get a bonus for that. Give them a good old whack. Apparently this other leader's power is he can resurrect once per battle, though we don't actually get to see that here, and I may have misunderstood that rule, but that is how it was explained to me. This absolute sod's going to drop in more of his healing stations and pepper us with various flames and missiles and all those other things that you basically don't want crashing into your flimsy cyborg bodies.
Destroyed.
Thankfully the wrecker can take quite a pounding, so I'm not too worried for now. Come on, time to just take out this hero. Once and for all. Nice. Down he goes. But like he said, he can come back, but I didn't get to see that in action, so who knows? To take you behind the scenes, this is the point in the demo where we're told that our time at the session is coming to end, so we begin to freak out and rush it a little bit. You'll begin to see lots of rather crude moves. You'll see some grazing shots, which is when you miss, the bullets whiz past, they still do a little bit of damage. Subtlety kind of goes out the window a little bit. Yeah, just chuck everything we've got at them. If I remember correctly, I think we decide to rain down some electricity on them, because that's the grown-up thing to do when the clock is ticking.
Enemy destroyed.
So obviously here we're just trying to obliterate them. I mean, this whole thing could have been avoided with diplomacy. I mean, there is a lot more to this game than just these individual tactical battles. And like I said, we will try and cover it in a future video. You know, you could have been trading sectors, trying to find peaceful solutions. There are also lots of other smaller factions outside of the main six, which you can't play as, but you'll encounter, which are the kind of remnants of other civilizations. You can work with them to try and find different solutions to share and trade. So you can build quite a varied empire from the various things that you find on each planet.
Enemy terminated.
For the time being, though, extermination is on the cards. It's basically empty every bullet we have into this giant brute. Of course, we've got to be careful. This large mech has a thing called Black Flash, which means it can reflect damage back on the attacker. So our wrecker does take a bit of a pounding from smashing into this thing. It's almost there. You can tell when the PR began knocking on the door, because we just start dropping bombs on everyone. When in doubt, shredder it up. Crunch. Now the question is, can a giant plague lord, a wrecker, our hero, and some riflemen kill one tiny unit of snipers? If they can't, we'd basically have to hand in our journalism badge. Do we get to continue doing this job? Oh, it's pretty close. It's looking pretty tight. No line of sight. Luckily, we can move down here and still have one action point. And job's a good un. That's how you do it. That's how you wipe out the enemy. We have successfully won the battle. which means we can annex the carbon crucible generator into our empire, attach it to our city, begin to get those achievements. And here we have little Michael Valentine in his weird futuristic motorbike, waiting to fight us another day. So that is the demo for Planetfall that we saw at E3. Hopefully that has helped explain. I've seen this demo playing on other channels without any description. I actually found it quite hard to follow, so hopefully I've broken it down in a way that helps. If you do have any questions about what we saw in the game, if you want us to go into more details, we did talk to the developers. We got a few more answers about things. They explained the wider setting of the game, which I didn't really have time to go into in this demo, but do ask in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer any questions you have. Planetfall releases on the 6th of August, so not long to wait, and we will hopefully have a bit more on it before then. Oh, and while you're here, why not check out some of our other E3 walkthroughs? We've got a lovely demo of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, which is a bit of a mouthful, but we get to go into that, and some fun stuff on Doom Eternal, so please do watch those, and we will hopefully see you on the channel soon. Bye for now.